I, as part Maori and part Pasifika, which is Niue Tonga, would be prioritized simply because of my bloodline, because I'm part Maori, part Pasifika. They've gained power because of certain seats within the country which have been set aside for Maori. Maori are genetically superior to Europeans, or genetically superior to Pākehā.
The self-proclaimed leaders of the Maori people.
Yeah, that is on point. Self-proclaimed. I have to say though, this current version of New Zealand First, love it, really like it. They are saying the right things. They're against the gender ideology being pushed into children schools, against the puberty blockers. They're talking about patriotism, which is almost never spoken of these days. They are very much against the climate alarms. They want mining and oil exploitation of New Zealand. They're saying everything that we want to hear. They're talking about nuclear family. It's really good. We just want to make sure that that's coming up. And what the powerhouse is, they're very strong for equality. So they oppose the racial suppression. So there's an attempt to make it so that white people in New Zealand or non-Māori are racially inferior to Māori. There's a very strong verbiage coming out. Whereas New Zealand First have very loudly opposed that. And what's really powerful is New Zealand First is Winston Peters, first in line, Māori. Shane Jones, deputy leader, Māori. Casey Costello, next in line, Māori. So you've got strong Māori who are standing up and saying, no, this is disgraceful. We're not going to have any of this apartheid-style policy going on. It's absolutely wrong. Shut it down. And that's a powerful thing.
You just mentioned then that the leaders of that party are all Maori. Let's talk about the Maori people of New Zealand, the indigenous people of New Zealand. Tell me if I'm wrong. This is my understanding, but I could be way off here. In New Zealand, the Maori have special rights that other people don't have. They have particular parts of your parliament that only Maoris can be in. They get preferential treatment. And for a nation who puts one particular set of people above the other, for me, that sounds like racism. It must foster anger between different people on the island, and I can't see that being a long-term strategy. Is any of that right? Do the Maori have special privileges?
Yes, there are. And there's a couple of ways to approach this. And especially with the British link, I mean, a huge amount of this is due to the Queen Victoria in the 1840 document called the Treaty of Waitangi. I'll boil it down as much as I can. But in 1840, there was a sign of a document between Queen Victoria and different tribes or different hapu within the New Zealand nation. And then that was the Treaty of Waitangi. In it, there were 3 articles, and this was at a time where Britain was very much affected by the Christian views that had been brought in. So they didn't want to go down the road of India, for example. They didn't want to engage in it. They wanted to be nicer. They wanted to be a little bit more beneficial. They didn't even want to really be there in the first place, but there's a history there. So it was signed. Article 1 was where the chiefs agreed to pass over sovereignty underneath the mana or the sovereignty of the Queen. Then the second part was basically property rights. What's mine is mine, what's yours is yours, and we can engage together and deal with things. Then the third article was that Maori were, and well, all the people of New Zealand were to be given the same rights and privileges of those of the British Empire. That's paraphrasing, but it's effectively what it was. The issue really does come around to that there were 2 translations written out there, and there were an accompanying, some governments were not as good as others. Now the treaty has coursed through, and again, I'm not giving it the depth that it deserves, but there are reasons to why there's arguments back and forth as to whether to have the treaty in there or not. But regardless, in 1975, the Treaty of Waitangi was put into that legislation element, and as we came. Now, During that time, there's a great deal of pushback by different tribes about land that was taken, some of it rightfully taken, some of it wrongfully taken. And so what we've come out to, especially since the 70s, is taking back or giving back of certain groups of land and therefore money. These are called treaty settlements, where there's been a breach, and so they've sort of made money, millions of dollars from the government for various things. On the whole, it's worked out okay. But in the O's and the tens, especially, the National Party brought out like I said before, the National Party brought out a policy. I call them the Finlayson policy, where it was co-governance, where it said, right, all the volcanic cones in Auckland, for example, well, we're going to give them to Maori to look after and be with. And also, as a part of that, you're also going to have rights and privileges to have unelected seats in or power systems within the council region. And so they've got it's a form of biculturalism or multiculturalism, where it's not about different groups of people under one code of laws, but rather code of laws and a type of code of law in here as well, where they've got special rights and privileges. I think I said to you earlier that there was medical privileges. For example, medical facilities around the country had a list of how to prioritize operations, and one of those was your race. I, as part Maori and part Pacifica, which is Niue Tonga, would be prioritized simply because of my bloodline, because I'm part Maori, part Pacifica. Whereas perhaps yourself, if you were a New Zealander, you would not. I would get over you. And that's shocking, because then need is not placed as high as it should be. Rather, it's about your skin color, things that have got nothing to do with your need.
Isn't that a definition of racism?
It's quite. I mean, it's pretty racist. There's a great deal of racism. Now, in terms, well, we've now got a group who are called the Maori Party. The Maori Party were the original Maori Party, who were brought out 15-ish years ago, were strong Maori seeking to do well for their people. It was a race-based party, of course, but they were trying to work within the system and work under one code of laws so that they could help their people. Great, love it, no problem. The Maori Party at the moment, who have pushed for a great deal of power, they've gained power because of certain seats within the country which have been set aside for Maori. And that's already quite extraordinary. So the Maori Party have grabbed those seats. They would fail in a normal general election, but they're in power. They're in parliament because of those particular seats. And what they're calling for is a UNDRIP document from the UN, from the United Nations, and the Māori Party pushing it as hard. What they want is a separate government system for Māori and a separate government system for non-Māori, what they call Tauiwi and Pākehā. And what they're coming out with is extraordinarily racist. What's one of the leaders said recently, that Māori are genetically superior to Europeans, or genetically superior to Pākehā. One of them, the wife of that person, said, we can take this effing country whenever we want. And she was saying to all of her supporters that the racism that is really coming out from this particular party, who have got power and are making it heard, it reminds me of Joseph Malema in South Africa under the Economic Freedom Fighters. I find that the language is very similar, but they're also very strongly Marxist. The language is very Marxist. Many of the group is very much as in they are avowed communists, as in that's what they state themselves as. They state that they're communists. Black Lives Matter, of course, was very big here for a little while, and they take on a lot of those concepts and precepts. So it's quite extraordinary, and anyone who speaks up in Parliament against them, and I'm sure this is not a surprise to you whatsoever, they are immediately called racists, and you're trying to suppress us and erase Māori rights and all this sort of stuff. And New Zealand First, that group who are your reform equivalents, They are very good. They are very good at saying, "No, you shut up. You don't know what you're talking about." Because again, they're Maori. And that's also why even myself, I get a lot of hate. I get a lot of abuse online and in my DMs, a lot of abuse. And that's because I'm part Maori, part Pacifica, as well as part English, part Gloucestershire.
Gloucestershire.
So that's where my bloodlines come from. So I get called a great deal. And I'm also a part of a major lobby group called Hobson's Pledge, where Hobson, at the signing of the treaty, said, He iwi tahi tātou, which means we are one people. Because I stand up for New Zealand being one nation, one people, one way for together. The extremists hate that. The problem is the extremists are very loud and very attractive to the provinces of New Zealand.
I think I saw something. I think it was last month in the New Zealand Parliament. Was there a bill going through about removing some of the privileges for the Maori and trying to make everybody the same? What happened there?
So you're talking about the Treaty Principles Bill. This has a connection with the treaty itself, the Waitangi Tribe Treaty, and yeah, it's from the ACT Party, who's the Libertarian Party in New Zealand. David Seymour is the leader of that party, who happens to be part Maori as well, which is great. And so he's putting it out there, and what the big one is that all people are to be treated equally. I'm paraphrasing it, but it's all people in New Zealand are to be treated equally, and government makes the laws. So the other left wing parties, the Labour Party, who are very much like your Labour Party, the Labour Party and the Maori Party, the Greens Party, who are even more, I would say, insane than I believe you've got. Oh yes, gosh, our guys they're not throwing orange stuff yet, but I'm sure they would if they could.
Yeah, the Green Party in the UK is the most dangerous party in the UK. If they had their way, we would be living in caves and we would be growing our own food in the dirt somewhere. They are absolutely mental.
I think I'm going to have a look at your ones because I think your ones and ours share very common. I mean, the Labour Party here is very much to the left wing, moderate to far left, but the Green Party here, and I'm curious about your one, but the Green Party here are avowed communists. Most of them state clearly that they're socialist or communist and that they want a very similar revolution.
Yeah, same.
Same. Okay. Interesting though, isn't it? Very interesting. That it's nearly identical.
Over here, we have a phrase that they're watermelons, meaning the green on the outside, but if you scratch them, the red on the inside.
Yes. Yep. Love it. Yep. So the Treaty Principles Bill went out. It's become a real mess. It's become a real big fight. There are a lot of TikToks, a lot of social media going on, and what the separatists, the people who want a new form of tribalism, what they're trying to say is, if we put this bill forward, you're erasing Māori. You are suppressing and oppressing. These are the words that we're very much used to. I find it extraordinary that
it's critical race theory.
Yes, yeah, it's critical race theory. That's absolutely what it is. But I just find it extraordinary that it's got such a hold of so many people.
Mm. So let's move away from the political side of all this because we talk about people who've got an agenda, political agenda. Let's talk about the average people on the streets. First of all, what's the percentage of Maori in New Zealand, and how are Maori and non-Maori getting along on everyday life? Are we living in our own enclaves where we don't mix with each other? Is there hostility between the two groups, or is all this just at a political level and at a at that sort of level? How's it on the street?
Yeah, great question. So Māori make up approximately 14 to 16% of the population, different each year. This is where it gets a bit tougher. So I travel around the country, and what I see on the streets is no one really cares. As in, you'll see Māori. So in the mostly Māori towns, everyone's chatting together. They're all having a laugh, having a beer together, and it's great. It's no problem. Where you do get some real cut and paste is the universities, which I'm sure that's not a surprise, and within the media departments. And now the thing is, a lot of New Zealanders still listen to the main media sources, which is in our New Zealanders RNZ and TVNZ, which if you put them together is very similar to BBC, the equivalent. So a lot of people still listen to them, still listen to the news, and they just come out constantly with a barrage of, Maori rights activists and this situation. Now, what's interesting is the most successful Maori that I come across in general, and I'm speaking, well, no, not anecdotally. A report came out maybe 10 years ago that showed the empirical data on this, but the most successful Maori tend to be those who go to Australia to live. And in Australia, there's no privileges, there's no Treaty of Waitangi, there's no extra social welfare benefits or anything. Over there, work or you don't work. And so there, they really do well with their families, upbringing the families, and it's excellent over there. In New Zealand, we have a huge amount of money that's flowing into the leadership and the elite classes of, and I don't want to say Maori, but I want to say those who are utilizing Maori for their own financial benefits and their families' financial benefits. But they are.
What you mean is the self-proclaimed leaders of the Maori people.
Yeah, that is on point, self-proclaimed. And there's always something that I always remember. I went to a press conference maybe just before the lockdowns, and in there were a lot of the activists, the ones who are very much on New Zealand TV, saying, "Oh, our people are oppressed. Oh, they're suppressed. Oh, there's attacks on them. Yada yada yada." And then in the cup of tea afterwards, I was eavesdropping. Just that's what I do. I was eavesdropping on them, and they were talking about frustrations they were having with their houses in Venice and Italy and Spain and Portugal, and how frustrating it was because some of the fees were over there. And I was listening to, and I was sitting there thinking, my wife and I have not gone overseas in like 6 years, and here these guys are arguing about their own house, and these are the same people on TV saying, "Oh, our people are using their accents and using everything they can to show, oh, poor me," and yet most of their money comes from taxpayer funds and taxpayer revenue streams. I found it obscene and disgraceful to Māori as well, who I work along with most.
Well, that's exactly what happened with Black Lives Matter in America. They were buying mansions with the money being donated to them. The frauds off the scale. And this was humans. Many humans are greedy and manipulative. It's a human trait. That's how we survive. But some people do it as a living, and they jump onto a bandwagon. It might be the eco. I mean, most of the people involved in making money out of the eco green stuff don't believe in it, but they're going to do it because I'm getting 4 million off the government to create, some wind farms. So people jump on the bandwagon if there's money to be made from it. And a lot of them are just actors, and they act the way and that's what actors do. They act a role and get paid, and that's what they do.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And in the meantime, it's the normal people who suffer, and they suffer greatly. I mean, Māori New Zealand, if you're a child, it's dangerous. We have so much sexual attacks on children, and most of them come from Māori homes. We have murder. We have quite a high level of suicidality, high level of murder. And the fact is, suicide, it's mostly Māori. Mostly Māori are ones who are going to be poor, who are going to be murdered, who are going to be sexually assaulted. It's horrific. And many of us, myself, for 2 decades, we were working in that field, doing our best to fight the system. And that's why those who fight for equality are those who fight against the excess of privilege or that separation of racial power in New Zealand.
What you've said there is exactly the work I've been doing in the UK for 20 years. And I've been working in the toughest, the most deprived areas of Greater Manchester. And it's not because those individuals are genetically defective, and it's not because they're stupid. It's because they were born into an area with no aspiration, no self-confidence. They live on benefits and the welfare system. So they teach their children how to claim benefits. And what I've been doing with these people over 20 years is showing them that this country has amazing opportunities on offer. And my job is to teach you how to see those opportunities, because at the moment they can't see any opportunities. So how do we expect them to grasp those opportunities and improve their lives when they don't even know those opportunities exist? So we need to show them how them as individuals, how they take personal responsibility, how they are the captains of their own destiny. And they need to stop waiting for someone else to fix their lives, because no one's going to fix their lives for them. The most they're going to get is a few coins thrown their way as if they're beggars. And they're not beggars. They just need to brush themselves down, stand up, and claim what is rightfully theirs. And that's the opportunities in your country, in my country. And I'm tired of people thinking welfare and turning people into beggars is the answer. It's not the answer.